sir, for having us here. It's such a great honor to be the president, and we'd like you to give us a brief about yourself and your background.
Well, my name is Honorable Prince Chibudo Nwuche. I am from Ochiba village, Nahuda East, local government of Rivers State. I studied for my O levels in Stella Maris College, Port Harcourt. I left in 1979 and I went to England to do my A levels in England at Lansdowne College, Oxford Town. I was there for 2 years. Then I finished there. I went to University of Kiel in Staffordshire, did a degree in politics, philosophy, and economics. Sorry, philosophy. I did minor subjects in astronomy and history. That's a 3-year program. While in university, I was a sportsman. We played football, and I have many colleagues who are prominent from my university. One of them, my very close friend, is Ovie Okiri. He's a Lagos lawyer. Ken Kobani, he used to play rugby. And while at Kiel, I was the founder of the Jazz Funk Society. Because then in England, they used to play only English music at the Union. So I had to think of how to bring our own music. So I formed the society. And many white students, male and female, joined and began to appreciate black music, African music, jazz, soul, and funk. And whilst in the university as well too, I was the president of Nigerian Union. I was the one before me was called Biodu Shotumbi. He's a professor somewhere in Ibadan. He was the president before me. So I assumed office after he left. And the idea was to make Nigerians feel at home. The skill was very cold in Staffordshire, in England. It was very cold, and we felt that all of us are far from home. So there was a need for bonding. And we worked together from all over the country. We're from the north, the south, the southwest, the south-south. There were Yorubas, Hausas, Igbos, Edo, etc., Rivers people, and we're all one. When Nigerians are out of the country, they see themselves as one. But when they come back home, they start making distinctions on tribal lines and religion. Those things don't matter. We need to begin to see ourselves as one. The way we see ourselves when we are overseas, and the way outsiders see Nigerians. When they see you, they don't ask you whether you're Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa. They see you as a Nigerian. If Nigeria has a wrong image, they won't want to know whether you are the one that is good or bad. It applies to all of you, so we should see ourselves as one. So that was Kiel. Then I finished in Kiel, and I did a second first degree at the University of Wales, Aberystwyth, in law. I got an honors in law after 2 years. It was an intensive program. And also, while at Kiel as well, while at Aberystwyth in Wales, there are many Nigerians there too. And we had a strong community of Nigerians. And I was there for 2 years. When I finished there, I came back to Nigeria and did my youth service at Janiki in Lagos. I was the copper. I remember that while I was the copper, that's when they had the Okaku, because I used to live in my father's house in Victoria Island. My father was the king of my people. His name was Eze Clifford Chester Nwuche. He was a police officer. From there, after the war, he became a businessman, and was also a politician. He was chairman of NPP. That was Zeke's party in Rivers State. And I used to see Zeke then when I was very young, and Mbakwe and Jim Wobodo, because they were my father's friends. My father was their party leader in Rivers State. So after my youth service, I went back and did a master's degree. I'm not sure of the sequence, it was a long time ago. I did a master's degree at King's College London in law. I did international finance law, commercial law, shipping law, and trademark and patents. Then when I finished, I came back to Nigeria. For the first 10 years, I was in the private sector. I was practicing law. In my law firm, I worked for Ajimogobia, Kekano Yebode. That was where I served. Before then, I'd worked briefly for Mujaga OJ and company in Warri. Mujaga OJ was my father's. He was chairman of MB at some point, was my father's lawyer. So I worked in his chambers for a while. Then I also worked with Zik Obi and company in Western House, Lagos. So I had my first office in Dolphin Estate in Lagos. I had a small office, a law office, and a business. I was involved in legal practice. I was involved in oil and gas servicing. I was involved in trading of products for the first 10 years of my life. I used to trade products in West Africa, from Nigeria, Cotonou, Lomé, Abidjan, Liberia. I was in Liberia during the war. I was there for like 2 months during the war because I had a ship that went there and I had to be there to receive the ship and about to discharge safely. Then in 1998, because what I did was that whenever I had some money, I have always had the people of my people at heart. So I'll go back home. I would help people with their medical bills, school fees, etc. So they said I should run for election in 1999. My father told me that, and I refused. I said no. I said I won't waste my time in politics. So he kept putting me under pressure. So I asked him, if I choose to run, who would fund it? He said that, well, he has no money to give me now, but he will give me some prayers. So I said, okay, if that's the case, I will not run. So I left it. Then one day, I saw him, I went to see him, I said to him, I said, okay, I'm going to run. When I said I'm going to run, surprisingly, the money that I needed to run, because then my business was thriving. I was then doing procurements for Shell, for Total, for Ajip, and for Mobil. So my business was doing very well. So that was why I was reluctant to run. But when I said I would run, because my fear was that if I invest money from my business into politics, and let's say it doesn't work, then what do I do? So I was very cautious. But finally, I'm saying this because of the youth, so they understand how a few of us got there. People sit down and assume, that everybody is corrupt, everybody is not this and cool. They must see a pattern. So that's why I said to you before that I didn't come to politics for money. I came to offer service. Because our people, before my father became our king, my grandfather was also leader of our people. He was the first person to own a motorbike. He had many wives, So that's why that lady you came with now, she speaks Kalabari. I speak her language because my grandfather lived in that place for a long time, and I have a step-grandmother from that place who are all late now. So I speak her language as well in River State. And you see, so that was how we began. So I said, okay, I'm going to run. When I said so, from nowhere, I got an order to supply 4,000 tons of AGO to LNG. So I did that supply. That supply was very profitable. And that was how I was able to pay for my elections. Then after elections, I said I'm going to run for speaker because I'm not going to do my business. I'm going to sit down there and just be a member. So I began to campaign amongst members who emerged in the South, South, and the Southeast. I held meetings for members at Nika Lake Hotel. People like Okeude were there. Nzeduru was there. Chike Luanko were there. Then I held meetings for South South at a hotel in Benin. I think it's called Palm Grove or so. It's in Benin, I think, about that. Then I had meetings too in Warri, because then I had some money, So I had a car, had some policemen follow me and go because of security and stuff like that. Then, so when we came to Abuja, Salisu Buhari had been doing the same thing in the north. He had also been meeting northern delegates who had emerged there. So he too was campaigning for speaker. But eventually the party zoned speaker to the north and deputy speaker to the south. So I emerged on the floor of the house as deputy speaker. I ran against people like, it was myself, Ned Nwoko, who contested for deputy speaker. I defeated him by the grace of God. And then Ned was my schoolmate at Kiel. Ned was a very good footballer, Ned Nwoko, good footballer. We had a team called Nirvana Warriors. We won a five-a-side league. I have the plaque they gave us today. So Ned is my close friend, and I wish him well. And then, so I met a deputy speaker. It was a very interesting time. We did our best for the country. We tried to fight for the independence of the legislature. Eventually, Salisu Buhari, on account of his age, couldn't continue. So Guy Naba came on board. And Naba and I stayed together for 4 years. And I think, by the grace of God, I was the only person who stayed out for the whole 4 years. as Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps because in my own time, Nweren was the first Senate president. After a while, Nweren fell, Chuba came. Then Chuba fell, then Anyim came. Then Abubakar was Deputy Senate President. Abubakar fell, then Mantu came. But I stayed all the way through for the 4 years. And it was a very interesting house. We were not well paid, but we were happy. And many members who were there came for service. And that time, Godfather hadn't emerged in our politics. So people who contested, many of them came on their own steam. And they had interest. So we had a very vibrant house. The debates were very rich, So I enjoyed myself there. So that's my history. So after National Assembly, I finished in 2003. I went back to my law practice. I have a law firm, and I'm in the oil and gas business. And then that's basically what I do. I try to create some value, and I employ Nigerians from across the country. When I was in National Assembly, I had over 80 staff, and I had a staff shared almost equally amongst all the tribes in Nigeria. I had staff from Kano, I had from Borno, I had from Kogi, I had from Southwest. I had my press secretary was Yinka Oduwole. He's now a pastor in London for Redeemed Church. I had Igbos. I have a man from his place, Tijani Kabiru, who just spoke. I mean, Tijani spoke now. He was my SA youth, he used to be head of NANS. So I had Nigerians from all over the country. I don't believe in tribes. I don't believe in religion. I think that those things are personal issues. If you're a Muslim, you worship your God. So should Christians. And we should not use that to divide ourselves. I think that people should be allowed to worship as they like. My best friends are Muslims. And you see, in this life, you find that people that may come to your aid in time of need may not be your brothers. Your brothers, in my experience, are the ones who may even put you down. My trials I've had in the past few years have come from my state, from people I know from my state. And those who have supported me have been outsiders. That's why I believe in one Nigeria. We should try our best to see that the country grows, that we build our economy, we empower youths, and we stop the politics of hate that is going on now. We should talk about progressive politics. So that's brief history. The next question. So I've answered, I think, all of them.
I think you justice to that question. And you are referred to my friends and loved ones as a silent achiever. So I get that now. So
as emphasis, I don't believe in blowing my trumpet. I don't believe in giving media interviews because I've spoken enough over the years. When it was National Assembly, we were on TV every single day. And I've addressed issues like resource control, I've addressed issues of restructuring. I think that Nigeria, for her to make progress, the country needs to be restructured to give more autonomy to the various constituent parts. Because if you began a journey in 1960, until date, you haven't reached your destination, you ask yourself, what is the problem? I don't think that the problem is the leaders we have had. We've had leaders from Zik, we've had Tafawa Balewa, we've had Awolowo Wanko, we've had Babangida, we've had Shagari, yet we see the country is not doing well. So it's not leaders that are the issue. The issue is the structure. My belief is that if you put an angel in this structure, he may still fail. So let's just look at the structure. Look at Nigeria worked best between 1960 and 63, and 66, before the war, when we had the regions. Northern region had ground pyramids. The Southwest had cocoa. Southeast had palm oil. And they were all prosperous. And they were all feeding the center. We should look at going back to that structure. That's what I think Nigeria should do. Otherwise, we would be in the wood for a long time because our mates like China, they were our mates at that time. Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Singapore are all ahead of us. So I think that we should, as Nigeria's leaders, come together and agree to change our constitution. Yes, that's what we should do, Otherwise, we won't be able to create jobs for our army of youth. And the economy will shrink further. We can't rely only on oil as a main source of revenue. We have solid minerals, we have agriculture. And most important of all, we have human capacity, human potentials. Nigerians are people who are very industrious, very hardworking, very bright. Wherever they are, they excel. So we must try and create harmony amongst them. justice, equality, fair play, and the country will grow by itself. You know? That's my belief. And while I was in the National Assembly, I sponsored several bills. I was the first sponsor of the Nigerian Content Bill. That was because when I was a businessman in the oil sector, Nigerian companies were not given priority. I suffered that. So when I was in 2001, I had a stakeholders meeting and we proposed a Nigerian content law. The bill was passed by both chambers, but the passenger could not assent before we finished. So thereafter, I think Ofodile took it up, Jude Ofodile. He too wasn't passed as well too. Then finally, Limeba passed it in Senate. And that law today has empowered Nigerian companies in the oil sector. Ships. And that we also are the one that passed the Nemasa Act as well, And we passed the EFCC Act as well to fight corruption in the country that time. And we also passed the NDDC Act that time. And then we began to implement 30% derivation in our own time as well too. We were the ones that also worked with the president then to implement that policy for the oil-producing states. And then I also sponsored a bill on people with disability. That bill, we were having regular meetings with the disabled, and I and my colleagues worked together to ensure that they had access to National Assembly. We had to create a ramp to enable them to have access to proceedings in the chambers. I think that bill is still not passed till now. And I and Mantu and Titi Abubakar were the joint sponsors of the Watercliffe Bill that protects women and children from trafficking. That is now an act of parliament. So these are the few achievements we recorded in the National Assembly.
That's loud. Amidst all these achievements of yours, I still want to know what drives you, what is the drive behind all these achievements that you
My drive is service. You see, what defines one's life is when people see and say, oh, this man helped us. In my area where I'm from, Ekwe, I say without a fear of contradiction that if I go to a village in my tribe in the afternoon and the people are in their farm and they hear I have come to their village, they'll come from their farm and come and greet me. That's what gives me joy. Because you see, you must learn to serve people. If you don't like people, don't enter politics. Don't jump. Luckily, you've run before in your state. If you don't have empathy for people, if you can't help them, if you're somebody who's very wicked, you want to oppress people, don't join politics. It is for service. How you measure your success is people you are able to lift from where they are to a different level. How the country was prosperous under you. That's why they say that when the righteous rule, people rejoice, and vice versa. So that's what drives me, service. And then where we are now is to mentor people who are coming up, the youth, because they have more time to be here than we do, to encourage them to keep striving. Like, for instance, the youth recently had their protest for EndSARS and reforms. I think it was laudable. I'm happy that they're taking more interest in politics and that they're demanding for reforms. It is normal. In our own time as well, too, we also fought for reforms. We were involved in the June 12 crisis in Lagos. I was then a young man in Lagos. We all went to the TBS to go and protest against the military government then. So everybody has done their own part. When they say that, oh, the adults haven't done their parts, I just laugh because they don't understand the history very well. That's why we must bring back history in our schools so that they can understand the history. In our own time, people had the SAP riots under Babangida. People had the Ali Must Go. They had the feeding riots. So people have been agitating when they were youth. Don't forget that people like the president was also youth when he first came, just like Gowon. They were all youth as well too. Abacha was also youth as well too. So was Shagari at that time too. So you can say that the adults have not done their best. We've done our best. We have also tried. So I think that I encourage the youth to dialogue with government. Let them find an amicable solution to the current impasse. There should be more because there's no benefit in fighting. You have made your point. The government has already pronounced the disbandment of SARS and then police reforms. And they can sit with government, they can find people who are credible among themselves into a panel and then achieve results for reform. The reforms they are fighting for is for the good of all, for even the government, for even the president. And look, the president has said that that he's a Democrat, he would listen to them, and he has already begun. So I urge the youth to find amongst them those who are credible, they can trust, to work with government to achieve peace, because no country develops an atmosphere of protest and riots, looting, etc. I think we finished.
Very much. And I think I would like to tell you how you feel to recognize the winner of a democracy humanitarian person of the year 2020.
Well, I feel honored that without soliciting, you found me out and gave me an award. I'm not one for publicity. I'm not one to seek awards. I'm not one that wants to promote myself before the public. I feel honored by the award. And at where we are now is to mentor the youth to see that our country grows to greater heights and that youths are allowed to take a more active role in our politics and governance, because they have much more stake than the elders do in Nigeria. Thank you.
And I'd like to go back to that sentence. I didn't come into politics for once, but to cause a positive change. What change?
Well, have I caused? Well, the point is that, you see, when you're given a platform, if you look at the history of the Parliament in 1999, look at the debates, the quality of debates, look at the issues that were raised. That's contribution. And as a lawmaker in my own area, I attracted projects, road projects, water projects, telecoms projects, and infrastructure projects generally. I also intervened for people who wanted jobs, who wanted resolution of issues, etc. And we tried in our own way to see that the masses had a better life. So that's the position. And then you see, people say, oh, politicians are all bad. But I ask them to be objective. For instance, people like Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, himself, myself, Wole Tinubu, were in the oil and gas sector, in the downstream sector. Abdurrahman had what they call first fuels in those days. They were the most prominent in the downstream. And Abdurrahman was doing very well. He had assets, he had businesses all over West Africa. Abdurrahman Abdulrazak. So when they say he's a politician, but that's not correct. You see, people should appreciate people who have left their businesses to sacrifice for politics. When I saw him run for election, I was happy. My other colleague in your state, Dapo Abiodun, Dapo was a businessman, my friend and colleague, also in the oil and gas sector, in the downstream sector. He was doing excellently well. Hayden is doing very well before now, but he has sacrificed his business to run. Sheyi Makinde was in oil and gas services in River State, very prominent, doing very well. He has left his business to sacrifice those people. So people should also note that not all politicians have entered politics for money. Many have entered for service, to serve the nation. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Lastly, I'd like to tell us, because we have young generation looking up to people like you. So what would be the advice?
My advice is that they should try and play clean politics. The politics of blackmail, intimidation, the politics of name-calling only retards the country. Power should be used for the good of the populace, not to witch hunt them. When you have power, which is given by God, it should be used to advance people's welfare. So my advice is that they should eschew the politics of bitterness, constant fighting. No country grows in an atmosphere where politicians are fighting themselves. You can debate, you can disagree to agree. It's not enmity. And also, let us focus more on the politics of issues and development. Let's discuss issues that would, not that, oh, I don't like this man, I hate this man, I don't like this man. That is not politics. Let's talk about the issues that would help our country grow. The economy, law enforcement, security, infrastructure, etc., international relations, stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of four people were nominated in the same category with you, and you emerged as the winner. So I must say congratulations, sir. You know, Democracy Heroes Award is at its eighth edition, and by the grace of God, next year we'll be celebrating the ninth edition. And one thing we believe in is to make sure that we honor the right people, not just because of giving award, but because of the future of our democracy, because of the future of the brand. What we stand for, we don't want it to die after one or two editions. We want it to continue even after us. So I must say that this is not the award that we're giving to you because of who you are or because of your position. Is the award that you actually deserve. Checking about you, especially from the first time I heard about you, I felt like you were one of the people that I wish you were present at the event. That seeing people like you, identifying people like you, plus the brand. A lot of people will say the reason why they're giving awards is because they want money, but I feel like people like you are more than money to us. Why? Because identifying with you is giving us, some weight. When we say we know you, a lot of people want to be part of us. So we haven't just presented this award to you, we are also appreciating the fact that you're welcoming us as part of you, as part of your family. So from today, we are now your babies. So on behalf of the organizers of Democracy Heroes Award, I am privileged to be the president, and I present to you your award as the Humanitarian Person of the Year. Congratulations.
Glad to be identified with youths who are dynamic, who are very positive about our country. And then through you to other youths, I would say that it's important that they keep relating with people who have done their little contribution to the country and gain from their experience so that they can drive and bring our country to higher levels. So once again, I thank you for this honor, and I wish this organization all the best. May it endure, may it progress, may it prosper. So once again, welcome. And I thank my